just for the record, all right, and I think I had both of you on at one point, right? We had Alex. Were you on Take This at one point?
Yes.
You were, and then Clay, I was on your podcast. That's what it was. So I was talking to Alex about MSU hockey at one point. Well, and the Red Wings. Griff and I had done that show, and then Clay has a podcast, MSU Hockey Hub, right? If you want to go to what is it, Twitter, it's MSU_H_H. Links, all that will be in the description, just in case anyone needs to find it. But so just to refresh everyone real quick, because this will be an individual clip, but Alex is a writer who covers MSU hockey at the State News, and Clay is he covers MSU hockey
owner.
Yeah, the Twitter account owner of the Michigan State Hockey Hub. It
is a great Twitter account though, so.
It's
fantastic.
It's good. It's good because you don't get a lot of college hockey coverage, especially in teams that are not notoriously like juggernauts, right? So like, and I know that Michigan State was good in like, the early 2000s and even went to the tournament in 2012, but that's not something that you would not consider Michigan State hockey to be like top line, right? Like it's not like basketball.
Not a BU or a Michigan.
Right, or even a Western Michigan who was showing some like Western Michigan has some good coverage too with the something Herald, I can't remember, but anyway, that's besides the point. So we got good stuff. This would be I just wanted to say this would be a very different conversation that we would be having if this was 2 months ago. This conversation about Michigan State hockey would be very different because the first game, and I just got sort of thrown into the hockey stuff. But when I started covering them, this was like this year, because I had been doing some stuff for Fansided, and I was like kind of over that hump, and I had just made the transition from like music to sports, and I was mostly like just really interested in what Michigan State had, but I didn't want to get stuck with like the overwhelming nature that basketball can have or like football can have. And so I picked a smaller sport, and hockey I've always been like interested in. And Michigan State's kind of actually been on kind of the upswing. Like the trajectory this year from last year was pretty good. And, even as hopeless as it sounds, but I was really hopeful, I think, especially with like Mitchell Lewandowski being like as good as he's been and stuff like that. But then the Great Lakes Invitational hits. They play a better team in Western Michigan, and even though like there were chances that they could have had to win that game, they didn't pull through. They ended up pulling through against Michigan Tech, who I don't know what that was. Michigan Tech fans are something, very much something. But then 2022 comes, and they got Minnesota, who they play, and I'm just like, what is this? Not looking good. But Lewandowski's out. So Lewandowski gets injured, who had already been injured. And so you kind of get this whiplash of this team who's going from like, I don't want to say that they could have won the Big Ten, but they could have finished fourth, maybe. That was like their ceiling this year. And now, what do you got? Like fifth at best? They were just in fifth. So like sorry, I accidentally went to you. The whiplash from just from something that was so high potential, it just kind of sucks, right?
Yeah. So, excuse me. I had both of you all on my podcast during the span where Michigan State was playing well. They were not dominating, but they were performing at a better rate than they were the previous year. And I said it to both of you all. I've said it over and over again. Okay, that's great. They have this break coming up. They have two legit hockey programs that they have to play. And then they have the real thick of the schedule. Those teams that are ahead of them, that were on their schedule in January, it was all Big Ten from here on out. This is where you show if you're legit or not. And they simply have shown that they're not legit. Those games in the GLI, I was still holding out hope. I actually met Brad on the concourse before, and we were talking about them. And That first game against Western Michigan, they held in there, and that's a good team. So I was like, okay. And then they beat Michigan Tech in OT, and then they just come out to Minnesota, and I mean, they blow a 3-1 lead at one point, give up, I think, 5 straight goals or 4 straight goals or something. I mean, just look terrible. And at this point, and I would never, especially me being on the outside, not being around these, I'm not going to question anyone's determination or effort or whatnot. But I mean, just from their play, it looks at times that it's just, I wouldn't use the word lazy, but just kind of unorganized or maybe not totally focused. There's just too many times during a game, you play 60 minutes and they seem to think that you play 30, 35 minutes some nights. And it's getting hard. This is year 5 of Coach Cole, and he has a well below 500 average across his coaching career. Tom Anastas was brought in and was given 6 years. And, it's been 5 years since Anastas left, and really has this program changed the trajectory at all? And if you ask me, I would say no, not right now. It takes longer to recruit and kind of turn a team around, but the talent Cole's brought in has not been a lot of the goal scorers. Lewandowski was an Anastas guy, and so was Dennis Cesana, and it's just kind of looking to me, okay, where do you go from here? I mean, this team, I mean, the season's more or less lost at this point. But do we have much to build on going forward? The recruits, I follow it a little bit. It's really hard to follow. There's a couple that you could say, okay, this guy has some skills, some offense, but I would not say that there's a ton of thrill going forward with what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. You bring up the point about Cole too, and like it's something that I've like pondered, but again, like I kind of just got thrown into this, right? So like I don't want to be the guy that's going to be like, "Dude, should you be fired?" Like I don't want to, like cuz it's easier to have that opinion too when you're like, when you're frustrated. Like that's something that you say when you're like at your wit's end. Like I didn't even say stuff like that about relating to the Lions about Matt Patricia until like, I mean I don't know, you could tell from the beginning that this dude was in over his head. But in a sport that is a lot less coverage, you're gonna see like it's a lot easier to be patient, because you're kind of you're not given the benefit of the doubt, right? Or you're given you should be given the benefit of the doubt, I should say. Because Michigan State, again, it's not that juggernaut school that you're going to see at like Michigan or, in like football. If you got like, you just saw like LSU fire their coach, it's not like this isn't that, after like the first year. But again, like you mentioned the patterns there, right? Like Michigan State had a coach for 6 years and then got rid of him because he was not giving Michigan State what they needed to get. And then, so again, like it's like sometimes how I track video game releases. Like this is when this publisher usually does this. This is the pattern. This is this is kind of that deadline. This is what you got to get to. And so, like it's I guess it's starting to get a little bit frustrating when you look at the history and and someone may ask like, why is this guy still like, is he on the hot seat?
Yeah, and just a couple of things to consider. First off, I am not one of those let's fire everybody guy. I'm not even saying to fire Cole. I'm just saying these are questions that are generating in my head of, okay, well, just right. Taking a 10,000-foot view. The only person I've ever wanted fired in my life was Rex Ryan from the Buffalo Bills. And that's just for obvious reasons. Rex Ryan is just a very difficult human being, and I won't go into that, but so one thing to consider, when Coach Cole was hired 5 years ago, that was a different athletic director. We have a new athletic director at Michigan State now. Mm-hmm. Who knows? He hasn't been able to show patterns. He's brand new. Maybe he has a short leash. Maybe he has a long leash. Maybe he puts a lot more focus on hockey. Maybe he brings some back if that's even possible. There's just too many unknowns, and we haven't had time to kind of see trends yet. I would imagine that they stick with Cole. College hockey, a lot of these big programs, like when Red retired from Michigan, they immediately got Mel, and he's like a top-notch coach. Michigan State's kind of had this, let's go after these guys who, with Anastas and Cole played on the 86 championship team, see if they can bring some spark. I think Cole is a better coach than Tom Anastas. And what Danton Cole's also brought that should not go unnoticed here is the facilities. He was the one in charge of kind of getting all that together, raising the money, and that should theoretically help with recruiting. But to me, this team, it's more than just the X's and O's of the coach, which I think bad X's and O's will get you fired quicker than recruiting, in my opinion, because you need time to see. And I don't even think it's as much as just bad X's and O's. The talent is just, when you look at these other line charts, Minnesota, everyone that you play in the Big Ten, they put them out, and what's to the right of each player's name? Their NHL draft affiliate. And you look at Michigan State's, and you see Calgary Flames with Mitchell Matson, who is in and out of the lineup, and Josh Nodler, who started hot and recently has taken a step back, 5th-round pick, not exactly a projected NHL. You just don't see a lot of that talent that evaluators in the NHL who draft players have selected. So it's not that they don't have talented players. It's just you can't have a team full of bottom 6 guys, and that's kind of what Michigan State has looked like more often than not. Lewandowski being out is really just showing in every facet. And, he's gone after this year. He was kind of the super senior COVID senior guy. So Drew DeRitter's gone. It's going to be tough. And that's one of those things that I'm thinking, okay, 2 of your best players are gone next year. Sure, others will grow, but you're relying a lot this year. I mean, they're good because of those 2 players and a few others. Sassano will be gone as well. The Kriegers gone as well. So that's when you really got to ask yourself, okay, what's this team going to look like next year? And if this is another just dumpster fire, how many years in a row can you put that? I mean, it's not even against Cole. I'm just take his name out of the hat and just say a coach hasn't really produced at the level you want for 6 straight years in a program that, hockey's not making a ton of money. You can't afford to just let it. The fans that it does have, you cannot afford to let them kind of fall by the wayside because it's, the fans are loyal. Right. It's not like basketball where you get a bunch of kind of people who tune in some here and there and whatnot. These are loyal fans, and if you start to lose those, then that's when you're really in trouble.
Michigan State, too, had sold a lot of tickets for that Ohio State game. That was on a 6-game slide. So, you want to talk about loyalty. Like, that's something I noticed.
I hear it all the time from people on Twitter. People are starving for Michigan State hockey to get back.
It would just make it so much more exciting because you got that big rivalry. But, like, how many states can say that they got that? You know what I mean? Like, you got 2 big name programs, like, with a national brand, right? Like, and I'm not talking about, like, Michigan State, like, hockey being a national brand. But you got, like, Michigan State, just athletics is a national brand, right? And you got Michigan, a national brand, one of the biggest college brands. And you have, well, actually, I would say the biggest fan base. But anyway, you got these 2 teams, right, who compete every year in hockey, and they play a game in Detroit where hockey is one of the biggest sports in the market. Like, you got people who are asking for hockey talk on the radio. I'm like, that does not happen in any other city. Talking about hockey is like a death shot, a gun wound, like, anywhere, just because it's nobody cares, but in Detroit, like, that matters to people. And, like, it would do so much, is when, like, both these teams would be good. Like, they would just do so much. So it's starving almost. I mean, Minnesota, what? Like, Minnesota against Duluth, Minnesota? Like, that would be fun to watch. Like, that would be great to watch. But, like, I don't know who the fuck Minnesota Duluth is. I don't know where it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just don't, I don't know.
Pretty selfish.
Okay, yeah, but like, I've never heard of the school.
Yeah,
Sorry.
if you showed me a map of Minnesota, I might as well just throw a dart at it and say that's where Duluth is. I don't know. I'm sure that
Right.
others do
I don't know where that
people
is.
where it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry that I didn't take a geography class.
I think this next season is really going to be sink or swim for Dan Cole. This year, I think a lot of coaches, especially in a sport that doesn't get as much attention like a hockey, I think they're going to give him some COVID leeway. Just kind of inherently, they're just going to do that. But losing those two essential guys, or not even two, the Krieger brothers, Sasana, DeRitter, Lewandowski, it's going to have to be freshmen and recruits next year. And if he dips into the portal, next year is really going to say, hey, these are your guys. You have you have David Gucciardi, you have Tanner Kelly. Who's the freshman I'm forgetting? There's one other freshman who's done good. Tucker.
Jesse
Tucker.
Tucker,
You have a couple of freshmen, but can they carry a team? I have questions about that. So I think this year, well disappointing. I don't think this will make or break it. I think it's next year. I think it's next year when you have all your guys. You can dip into the portal. Like you were mentioning with the new athletic director, we're going to kind of see what direction he kind of goes with hockey, because he got them the new facilities. Like, certain things about the program look to be trending up, but I think in the end it's just going to be next year we're going to see what goes on with coaching.
So, and I wanted to talk real quick about Gucciardi. A lot of people apparently, the interesting thing to me is that so you got three freshmen, right? Mainly, right? And two of them are forwards, and one of them is Gucciardi, which, defenseman. So the interesting thing to me is that, and Alex, I think you brought this up to me, and I didn't really notice it until really I started watching. But Michigan State doesn't have any they're not creative. They don't get that creativity, when David Gucciardi, I swear to you, I jumped up so fast at this, but when David Gucciardi scored that game-winning goal in OT against Michigan Tech, I was like, that is the most creative thing I think I've seen them do all year. Just because it was in overtime, it was 3-on-3, stuff like that. But with Gucciardi, I feel like that, he's just been a guy that's been just kind of a spark, if anything, if the team has one, without Lewandowski. Middendorf's been good and other stuff like that, but Gucciardi's been kind of the guy that I've just been kind of watching, because I think it wasn't what it was for me that really what really set that up was when he did the backwards pass the other game. I think it was against Ohio State, right? I don't know if you guys caught that, where he what did he do? He
maintained offensive zone possession and kind of flipped it over. He did a little spin.
Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. He was in the offensive zone, did a little flip and passed it around to the point at the left, and then he kind of moved in and shot it. The other guy did, and that was a very clever move. That was a nice take.
Right, and it was just stupid little stuff like that is just something that can. It's not something that's gonna win you games, but it's something that is very it's something nice to see, especially when you you mentioned, you're gonna see this team rely a lot more on their guys that are just they're young, they're inexperienced, you're gonna see a lot more reliance on that. Have you guys seen any sort of anything through, I know the portal's an option, but with recruiting, anything that is just kind of jumps off the page?
So they did land a recruit. I think it's 2024. And in terms of Michigan State hockey recruiting, Jeremy Dewar does the best job of anyone following that. And
Yes.
if you ever go to his Twitter page, it's like Jer Bear, I think. He actually has a spreadsheet that he updates and when the players are coming, which year, who's committed, all that stuff. So that's a very good resource for those of you who want to follow. But Christian um, Kim, not Christian Kirk, that's the wide receiver for the Cardinals. Christian Kim committed, and he does have offensive upside. And he had, I think, 97 points in like 49 games or something crazy like that. Um, that's a guy who caught my eye. And Jeremy, when I talked to him about it, really had high praises for him. But again, it's so hard to project, and it takes kids a while to transition once they come in as a freshman. But really, you have to start recruiting more offense. Too often, if you look at these recruiting classes and you research the person's name on elite prospects, you pull up, they play 25 games and have 6 points. And that's not, there's definitely room on a roster for players like that. You just can't fill up the entire roster like that. A lot of these top talents, my biggest issue with recruiting is the local kids are going elsewhere. They're filtering to Michigan, they're filtering to Wisconsin, or we really are not pulling a lot of Michigan kids who are kind of at the top of the recruiting classes from there. And I really don't know what the answer is. Hopefully, better facilities help.
Well,
All these
like
things
Western
are.
Michigan being like this season. I mean, because what, this is a surprise for them. That's probably not gonna help Michigan State's case.
Yeah, and they're a pretty good program overall, but you can put it's kind of like if you have a Porsche and you have the nicest rims and the freshest paint job and all these aftermarket things, that's kind of the facilities and kind of the promoting the school. Winning is the engine. You have to win. Not a lot of talented players are going to say, "Okay, I'm going to go to insert mediocre program or below average program." They're going to go to teams that win. So yeah, the facilities help and all that, jazz helps. But when it all comes down to it, players want to play for the top programs. If you look across the NHL draft in the first round or two, players who are playing in college, it's not often that someone gets drafted from a college that's not very good. It seems like it's always kind of top tier programs because that's where the talent kind of levitates towards. So Michigan State has a lot to figure out. I don't know what the answer is. I'm glad that I'm not the one making the decisions. But it all boils back down to the talent on the ice, and they do have some talented players, some skilled players. Jesse Tucker, I think's a playmaker, not really much of a scorer yet. I think he'll develop into that. We saw
Yeah.
Tanner Kelly with the redirection goal. That kid has skill. He's going to have to settle in. Tiernan Shouty is coming in next year, and he'll be a freshman. He played with Tanner Kelly on the same line in juniors. I wonder if they try to match those two up again and see if they can't recreate some magic because Kelly put up some points in junior. So, but yeah, it's really just the amount that they're losing. Now, there's a famous quote, right, from I think it was a Michigan State basketball coach or Jed Heathcote. The good news is we have everyone back. The bad news is we have everybody back. And that's kind of the thing I look at with, oh man, I wish a lot of these seniors could come back. But at the same time, like there's certain seniors that I think it's time for them to kind of move on and see if we can't, they've kind of proven what they are and the program isn't taking off with where they are right now. I think the D line or the defense getting some new players in there just to see what it could look like could help.
You just touched on it right there. The defense, kind of reloading there and being able to update, like David Gucciardi, for example. I've talked about him all year. I think he has the most raw talent on the team. In fact, I think he could be drafted in this year's draft. He has really good hands for a defenseman. Really soft hands. He is a quick skater. Makes intelligent, kind of crafty decisions. Tries to do a little too much on his own sometimes. But I think that's the kind of guy, if you groom him for a role as a top defenseman, he's going to look really good by the time he's a junior or a senior. So I think that's really key is next year. Like I was saying, kind of you get some of those rookies you were talking about, some of those young guys, and slot them in. Kind of see the seniors out. Dan Cole likes his guys to be hard, gritty, like experienced guys, and that's why he relies so much on seniors. It's going to be refreshing to see kind of a new team and kind of a new face of the team. I don't know. That's the main storyline I'm going to be keeping an eye on next year.